Throughout this course, I'll be using a locally hosted WordPress blog to show you how things works, but you should follow along using your own WordPress blog hosted online or locally, as in my situation. It's essential to have a WordPress blog to work with in order to take full advantage of this course. In my case, I'm running Windows 7 as operating system and WAMP as an Apache and MySQL server. WAMP allows you to run any of your websites locally by creating a web and database server on your computer. On top of that, I have installed WordPress, added a few random posts and pages to it, and changed the default theme in order to make it look different from a standard installation. So, now I have a running WordPress blog with content that I will backup and restore it later. The backup and restore procedure of your WordPress blog will be the same, no matter how complex your blog is or how much content it has. Let's see now why having a backup of your WordPress blog is so important. The first reason of having a backup is the most obvious one: hacking. No matter how secure your hosting company claims to be, there is always a small chance of being hacked. The hackers can change a lot of your files. They might add additional files or remove existing ones without for you to notice any changes. They can also modify the database structure or actual data. The process of removing the hack from your blog can easily turn into a nightmare, so the best solution will be to restore the site to a functional previous state before the hack occurred. For that case, you need several backups so you can decide which one was affected by the hack and which one wasn't. There's no point in restoring a backup made after the hack took place. Another reason could be a hosting server malfunction. This can happen to anyone, as the server is just a dedicated computer and sometimes even computers can fail. These could be some very rare cases, but that doesn't mean that it can happen. Having a recent backup can save you from this situation. That means that even if the hosting company is making backups of your site, you should run a backup procedure on your own. One more reason could be moving your WordPress blog to another hosting company. This also includes the case when a hosting company may terminate the contract with you for various reasons, or you want to terminate the contract with them. In all these cases, you need a recent backup of your blog so you can quickly move it to another hosting company as soon as possible in order to reduce the downtime. These are only some of the reasons that should convince you that having a proper backup of your blog is very important. Now that you realize that having a backup is a must, let's see what do you really need to back up from your WordPress blog, because backing up the whole website is redundant and not necessary. There are several key files that needs to be backed up, which are database. This is the place where all your content and settings are stored. In order to restore the site to a previous state, you have to restore the database from the backup. WP-content folder. This folder contains all themes, plugins, and the user uploaded files. It is important to backup all this because if your site gets hacked, the hacker might have injected code into any of these files. This folder can get very large if you have a lot of content on your site, for example a lot of videos, images, sounds, etc. wp-config.php file. This file contains all the database settings used by WordPress in order to connect to the MySQL database. It can be easily recreated if you have the database information available, but it is more convenient to add this file to your backup procedure. .htaccess file. This file reflects your WordPress permalink settings. It also can be easily recreated, but it is more convenient to restore it from a backup. robots.txt file. This file contains information used by search engines. It tells the search engine what files do you want to be included in the searches, but more importantly, what are the files or folders that you don't want to be included. This is a file used by search engine optimization and is your option to have it included in your list of files being backupped or not. By using the WordPress plugins that I'm going to discuss in this course, all files can be backupped automatically, and you can even schedule a backup to take place at specified date or time. In this lesson, I'm going to manually backup my WordPress installation. I will use my local installation hosted on my PC, but in the next lesson I will show you how to use an FTP client to backup your remote installation. I'm going to open up my WordPress installation folder by going to WAMP and then selecting the www directory from the menu. This will open a new File Explorer window. From here, I will navigate to the WordPress folder which holds my WordPress installation, and in here I can find all the files that I need to copy in order to create my backup. Next, I will create a new folder on my desktop called WP Backup, which will store my backup files. I will arrange these windows side by side and will select files from my WordPress folder in order to copy them to the destination folder. These files are the ones that we discussed earlier about. The WP content folder, the .htaccess file, and the wp config.php file. I will copy these files into my newly created folder, as these are the files that I will need later for restoration. Welcome back! In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to manually backup your hosted WordPress installation on your local computer. Here I'm going to use the FileZilla FTP client in order to access my remote FTP server and transfer the files. I'll open the FileZilla application. Here I need to enter my hostname or IP address of the remote server, my username and my password. These details are provided to you by the hosting company when you sign up for an account. I'm going to enter my IP address for my FTP server, my username, and my password. For the port number, I will enter 21 as this is the default FTP port number. The program will ask me to remember my password. I will choose not to remember for now and click OK. The FTP client will connect to my remote server. I'm now connected to my FTP server and I will navigate to my WordPress installation. In my hosting, WordPress is located under Home, WordPress folder. Inside, I have a public HTML directory which contains my WordPress installation. In the left panel, I will navigate to my desktop, where I will create a new folder that will store my backup. I will name the folder WP Backup, and now I am ready to copy the WordPress files into it. I'm going to select the files to be copied over FTP into my computer. These files are wp-content folder and wp-config.php file. The .htaccess and robots.txt files are not present in my installation. I will just drag and drop the selected files over my newly created folder on the desktop in order to initiate the file transfer. Copying the files will take a while, so I will fast forward the video here. Now that the files are successfully copied into my local folder, there is one more step for me to do, and that is backing up the WordPress database. We'll see how this can be done in the next lesson. Now that we have backed up our WordPress files in the previous videos, we need one more thing to do in order to have a full backup of our WordPress blog, backing up the database. In this video, I'm going to use the phpMyAdmin web client for MySQL in order to back up my database. I'm going to open the phpMyAdmin from WAMP as phpMyAdmin comes pre-installed with it. Next, I'm going to select my database that I want to back up. In our case, this is called WordPress. I make sure that the right database is selected, and then we'll go to the Export tab in phpMyAdmin. Here, I will let the default settings selected and will click on Go. An SQL file will be downloaded which contains my database structure and data. Next, I'm going to copy the SQL file next to my WordPress files obtained in the previous lesson, so now I have everything in place. The manual backup procedure of our blog is now complete. Now that I have successfully created a backup, let's see how can we restore it. But first, in order to simulate a malfunction of the server or even a hack, I will manually delete the WordPress database and see how the blog is performing in this situation. Here, I am again in my phpMyAdmin web interface and will delete the WordPress database. I will go to Home, then Databases tab, and from here I will select my WordPress database. Next, I will click Drop and a confirmation dialog will be displayed. I will click OK to confirm the deletion of the database, and now, without an actual database, I will go to reload my website. The result will be an error page telling me that a database connection cannot be established. Again, I manually deleted the database just to simulate a real hack attack or a server malfunction to see how WordPress is reacting. In the next lesson, I will delete more of my WordPress installation to see how things will go from there. In this lesson, I will manually delete some folders of my WordPress installation and even the whole WordPress directory to simulate a crash on my hosting. I recreated the WordPress database in order to have a full functional blog again. What I'm going to do is first deleting the wp-config.php file from my WordPress installation. Here I am in File Explorer inside my WordPress installation folder. I'm going to select the wp-config.php file and delete it from this folder. Next, I'm going to reload my page in the browser and oops, an error is displayed. This is telling me that a wp-config.php file is indeed missing. But I'm about to go further here and delete the whole WordPress folder next. Now, if I refresh my page, I get another error, an index page. So, in the next lesson, I'll show you how to fully recreate my deleted WordPress blog from scratch, so stay tuned. Welcome back. In my last lesson, I have totally deleted my WordPress installation folder just to simulate a server crash or a hack attack that targeted my WordPress blog. In this lesson, I'm going to recreate my blog from the backup that I have stored earlier on my computer. In order to proceed, I'm going to download and install a fresh copy of WordPress by going to www.wordpress.org. Here, I'm going to click on the blue button which says Download WordPress. Click again on the blue button and the download should start. A zip file will be downloaded which contains my WordPress installation files. I'm going to open the archive, and from here I'm going to extract the content of the WordPress folder of the archive into my WordPress folder in my www directory, which is now empty. As soon as the files are extracted, I will try to reload the browser page to see if that was enough to bring my blog back. But of course, that wasn't enough, so I will need to restore the files from the backup that I created earlier. I will open up my WP backup folder on my desktop, and from here I will copy all the files into my newly created WordPress folder in my www directory. I will select yes when asked about copying and replacing the files that already exist to the destination, and in the next lesson we'll see what's needed to get our WordPress blog up and running. In the last video, we restored the files from the backup location into the newly created WordPress installation folder. There is still one more thing needed to successfully restore the blog to a previous functional state, restoring the database. In this lesson, I will discuss about restoring the WordPress database from my earlier created backup. This will be the last step in my WordPress restoration procedure. I'm going to open up the PHP MyAdmin web client from WAMP. As you can see, there is no WordPress database created on the server as we deleted in a previous video. Now, I'll have to create a database that will hold my WordPress data. In order to do that, I will go to the Databases tab, and here I will enter WordPress as the name for the new database. We'll click on Create, and an empty database is created for us. Next, I need to restore the dataset from the SQL file that I've saved earlier. We'll do that by selecting my database, which is called WordPress, and then going to the Import tab. Here is the SQL file that contains all my database structure and data. I'm going to click on Choose File and then navigate to my WP Backup folder created on my desktop. From here, I select the SQL file to import and will leave all other options by default. Next, we'll click on Go in order to start the import procedure. A message is displayed to notify me that the import has succeeded. And now, the moment we all have been waiting for. It's time to check up my blog to see if it has been successfully restored from backup. I'll open up WAMP menu and navigate to my projects. From here I'll select WordPress, and this is my blog fully restored from backup, up and running with all the settings, posts, themes and plugins available. Let's see what do you need to take into consideration when choosing a backup plugin for WordPress. Ideally, a backup plugin should do at least the following things. Availability and pricing. First, the plugin should be compatible with your version of WordPress. In order to find the version of your WordPress installation, you have to log in into your WordPress dashboard or admin panel. Here I'm running my local copy of WordPress, and I'm going to access my admin panel just by adding wp-admin by the end of the URL. Here I'm asked for my credentials. I'm going to log in as admin, and as soon as I log in order to see the version of your WordPress installation, you have to go to the bottom right corner. Here the version is 3.9.1. Create a backup of your WordPress database and files or folders. In order to be able to restore your WordPress blog to a running state, the plugin has to backup at least the files that we discussed about earlier, along with a copy of the database. Store the backup in a safe location where you can easily access it. Many backup plugins will allow you to store the backup in a location that is easy to access and restore from. Some examples could be your local hard drive, your hosting company hard drive, online cloud services like Dropbox, Google Drive, etc. Store the backup in a format that allows you to easily restore the website from. There is no point in having a backup in a format that can be easily used in a restore procedure. Many of the backup plugins will have an option that allow you to restore your backups created earlier. Easy to set up and use. More complex backup plugins will have a more advanced setup procedure, but try to stick with the ones that are easy to set up and use. In addition, the plugin should work in background in a way that does not interfere with your website normal operation. It should allow you to customize the backup schedule to your liking. First plugin that we are going to discuss about is called Backup WordPress. This is a very simple plugin to set up and use, and I highly recommend it. The second plugin is called WordPress Backup to Dropbox, and it does exactly what its title says. It allows you to backup your WordPress blog into a Dropbox account. Using a cloud service solution like Dropbox to store your backups means that you will have access to the backup from any computer or mobile device, and this is very convenient. Welcome back! So far, we have manually backed and restored our WordPress blog. In this lesson, we will discuss about a WordPress plugin that will automate the process of backing up our blog. The plugin that we'll cover here is called Backup WordPress and is an easy to install and configure plugin. In order to install any plugin in WordPress, you'll have to access its admin panel or dashboard by going to your website address and adding /wp-admin at the end of your URL. Here, you are asked to enter your WordPress credentials, which consist of your username and your password, and after clicking the login button, you are taken to the admin panel. From here, you will have to select plugins from the left menu and then click on Add New in order to install a new plugin. We are going to search here for our plugin called Backup WordPress. I will type its name in the search box and then click on Search Plugins button. Shortly, a list of available plugins will be presented to us, and our plugin, Backup WordPress, is the first on the list. We're going to install the plugin by clicking Install Now. Next, the plugin is downloaded from the internet and installed. In order to enable the plugin in our WordPress blog, we have to click on Activate Plugin. Our plugin is now successfully installed and activated. Now we can access its setup page by going to the Tools menu and selecting Backups from the list. The settings page for this plugin is now displayed, which allows us to configure it. In order to create a new rule, we click on Add Schedule button, which will pop up a new window. From here, we can set up the backup type. This will include both database and files, files only, or database only. I strongly suggest to use the first option, database and files, as this will allow you to create a full backup of your blog. Files only option will create a backup containing the files of our WordPress blog without the database, while database only option will create a database backup only. Next field is for backup schedule. Here we are presented with several options starting from manually to monthly backup. Depending on your website's traffic and content, you can choose to back it up daily or even twice a day, but for a normal website, a weekly backup should be fine. This will make sure that the backup procedure will run once a week. Start day is the next field to set up in our schedule. I recommend to use a day in the middle of the week for that, and for start time, pick something like midnight or even later when your website doesn't have so much traffic. This is because we don't want our backup procedure, which can be resource intensive, to affect the online users of our website. We'll leave the default for the number of backups to store on this server, and for the email notification I'm going to type my newly created email address just for this purpose of WordPress backups. The plugin will send us a notification on email when a backup completes. The email can also contain our backup archive if the file size of this archive is less than 10 megabytes. Next, we'll click on Update, and that will create our first backup schedule. We are then notified about our new backup settings, which means that our initial setup was successful. I will next click on Run Now, which will manually start our backup procedure right now, without waiting for its first schedule. This will take a few moments, and then we can see the backup was successfully running, its size and its type, database and files. On the right, we have an option to download or delete the backup from the server. I will click on Download just to see what's contained on the zip file. A new file will be downloaded, a file that will have its name containing the WordPress host, in my case localhost, the type of the backup, and the date and time of its creation. I'm going to click on the file to open it, and here we can see that the whole WordPress blog has been backed up, including our wp-config folder, our database SQL file, and our wp-config.php file. Hey, welcome back! In our last video, we covered an easy to install and set up backup plugin for WordPress. In this lesson, we are going to discuss about a more complex backup plugin called WordPress Backup to Dropbox. Its setup procedure is a bit more complicated than the previous one, but the plugin will allow us to store the backup files on the cloud. A Dropbox account is required for this plugin to work properly, but we'll get into details on how to create this account in the next video. But first thing first, let's start out by installing the plugin into our WordPress blog. Here I am in my WordPress admin panel with the plugins menu selected, and I'm going to add a new plugin by clicking Add New button. Next, I'm about to type the plugin name into the search box. Its name is WordPress Backup to Dropbox. Then click Search Plugins. The first plugin in the search page is the one that we are looking for. I'm clicking Install Now button in order to proceed with the installation and press OK on the confirmation box that appears. The plugin is now downloaded from the internet and installed into WordPress. As soon as the install process has completed, I will click on Activate Plugin in order to enable it on my website. Okay, great! Now the plugin has been successfully installed and activated. One more thing before we continue. We need to disable the backup WordPress plugin that we installed earlier by clicking the Deactivate button. We do this so that both plugins don't interfere one with each other. Next step is to configure our newly installed plugin. We do this by selecting WPB2D from the menu. We are now presented with the WordPress Backup to Dropbox Authorize page. But wait, what do we have to authorize? In order for our plugin to be able to store its backup files into the Dropbox, we have to authorize its access first. But let's see in the next video how to create our Dropbox account. In this video, I'll be creating a new Dropbox account. But what is Dropbox, you might ask? Dropbox is a cloud storage system that allows us to save our files online. That means that we don't actually store the files into our computer hard drive, but in an online storage location, also known as cloud. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's the most basic principle of it. You can access your files from any computer or mobile device with an internet connection from anywhere in the world and at any time. That's cool. In order to open an account with Dropbox, we just navigating to www.dropbox.com. Here, you have an option to sign in into your account if you already have one, or just create a new one. We'll take the second option and sign up for a new account by clicking on the Sign Up button. We are asked to enter our first and last name, an email address, and of course a password. Usually, you have to enter your real details here, but since I will create this account just to demonstrate how our plugin works with Dropbox, I will enter WordPress and backups are my first and last name. Next, I'll type the email account created for this tutorial and will pick up a password that is both secure and easy for me to remember. We'll click on Sign Up button and that will take us to a second sign up screen, one that presents us several Dropbox plans for our account. The basic account, which is also free, will suffice our needs for this backup, but keep in mind that the storage space of the basic account is limited to 2 GB. Of course, you can increase the space later if you need to, but for now, this is enough for our backups. A second plan will be a Pro account, which will give you access to 100 GB. A third option will be a business plan starting at $15 per user. This is useful for corporate usage. I'm going to click Continue on the basic plan, and now the Dropbox client application has started downloading on my computer. I will not use this application on this tutorial, but you can continue with installing it. This client application will allow you to transfer the files between your computer and your Dropbox account and keep them in sync. That concludes our Dropbox account creation. So now we have access to 2 GB of online storage. Next, I will choose Files from the left menu, and that will take us to our stored files. Right now, there's only one file available, called gettingstarted.pdf. It contains information about how to use your newly created Dropbox account, and I encourage you to read it. Now that we have our Dropbox account created and ready to go, it's time to authorize our plugin to use it. Here, I'm dealing with an error because my Dropbox session expired before I tried to authorize the plugin. We'll just ignore this error for now and we'll click Authorize. A new page is displayed letting us know that WordPress backup to Dropbox will like to access its own folder inside our Dropbox. That's perfectly fine, so I'll click the Allow button. We now have successfully connected the plugin with our Dropbox account. We'll just need to click again on Continue back on WordPress dashboard, and then we will have access to the plugin settings page. On top of the page, we can unlink our plugin for our Dropbox account. That will not allow the plugin to use this Dropbox account for storing the backup files anymore. I'm not going to do that now, but it's a nice option to have available when you decide to stop using this plugin or simply switching your Dropbox accounts. A bit down on the page, we can see when the next scheduled backup will take place, but there is no scheduled backup set up yet. Next, we have the history, which will contain our backup running log along with any error message we might get from the backup process. Then we have access to the settings. Store backup in a subfolder of the WPB2D app folder would allow us to store the backups from more WordPress sites in separate folders instead of all in one place. This option will be unchecked in our situation as we only have one WordPress blog to backup at the moment. Again, Date and time settings will allow us to set the backup schedule date and time. For date, we will pick something in the middle of the week, and for time, something like 3 AM, so the backup will not affect many users that are online at that time. For frequency, we'll choose weekly, as this will suffice for a small to medium traffic blog. And now the tricky part. We are asked to select the files that we don't want to be included in our backup. So, instead of choosing the files that we want to backup, we are selecting the files to be left outside of the backup. First, I will select all files and then deselect the ones that I want to be part of my backup, which are wp-content folder, .htaccess file, and wp-config.php file. Important to note is that your SQL dump file will always be backed up regardless of what files or folders you have selected. So, no matter what you choose to include in your backup, your database will be backed up anyway. That's a nice feature, as database files don't usually take much space and are important files to have in our backups. Finally, we'll click Save Changes and we'll be presented with the message confirmation of our settings being saved. In order to check the status of our backup, we'll select Backup Monitor from the left menu. We can see that no backup has been running yet on this website, so I will manually run a backup process now by clicking the Start Backup button. This will take some time to complete, and in the meantime, we can see that in our Dropbox account, a new folder has been created named Apps. This folder is created by our backup plugin and is a sign that the plugin has been successfully connected to our Dropbox account. All the backup files will be created into the WPB2D folder inside of the Apps folder. One thing to notice here is that the database dump file, so the SQL file, will be created inside a folder called Backup that resides in our WP-content folder. Back to our WordPress dashboard, we can see a log of running backup tasks with information about how many files have been backed up so far. Few minutes later, we can see that our backup process has been completed successfully, the number of files that have been processed, and the total amount of space occupied by these files. In our Dropbox folder, inside the Apps folder, and inside the WPB2D folder, we can see the files that we have requested to be included in the backup, along with a copy of the database file, located in the Backups folder in our WP.content folder. Next, in our WordPress backup to Dropbox page in our dashboard, we can see the time that next backup is scheduled to run at and the history of our last completed backup. Great! So now we have our backup files on Dropbox. How cool is that? But what happens to our files when a new backup schedule will run? Will these files be overwritten? And in case they do get overwritten, what can we do about it? What if I want to access a backup file dated 1 month earlier? Here comes file versioning into play. Dropbox is running a file versioning system on all your files. This means that before a file got overwritten, an initial version of it is saved. You can access this feature by selecting the file that you want to recover and then clicking on More and Previous Versions. This will present you a version history of your selected file along with the size of the file and the date or time that was created. Here you can see an older version of your file. You can check its content by simply clicking on its version, and you can restore it by selecting the desired version and then clicking on Restore button.
Hi, in this video I'd like to discuss about using another cloud backup plugin for WordPress. I don't have one specific plugin in mind, that's why I started with a Google search for WordPress Cloud Backup. The first organic result points to a plugin called Updraft Plus, I hope that I pronounced it well, Backup and Restoration. Let's see what this plugin is about. If we open the plugin page, we can read that this supports multiple cloud storage backups like Amazon S3, Dropbox, Google Drive, Rackspace, FTP, email, and so on. As we have used Dropbox in a previous lesson, we are now going to use Google Drive. But first, let's see more information about this plugin. I repeat, this is a new plugin even for me, one that I have not used in the past. So, the plugin supports the latest version of WordPress, which is 4.1 at this time. It has been recently updated, today being February 9th, 2015, and most importantly, have been installed and used by lots of users, many of them leaving a 5-star review for it. So this should be a nice plugin to try. The website that I will use this plugin on is my personal website, a fairly new domain, so a live domain this time. Here you can see that I have no other WordPress backup plugins installed. I'll start by copying the name of the plugin, which is Updraft Plus Backup and Restoration. I'll then switch to my WordPress dashboard. I have plugins selected and will press Add New button in order to install a new plugin. I will simply search for the plugin by pasting its name copied earlier and will press Enter. The first plugin in the list is the one that we're looking for, so I'll just press Install Now. And after a few moments, the plugin is downloaded from the internet, extracted and installed successfully. I will just need to activate it by pressing the Activate Plugin button. Now that the plugin has been activated, we need to set up its settings, and we can do that by clicking on the Settings link. In order to make any changes to the default settings or to configure scheduled backups, we need to access the settings panel. But first, let's create a backup by pressing Backup Now. A new window is displayed, which allows us to create a one-time or manual backup. We have the option to exclude the database from the backup, to exclude any of the files, leaving us with only the database backup created, or we can choose not to upload the backup to a remote or cloud server. This time I'll leave all this unchecked and we'll just press Backup Now. And as we can see, a new backup operation is in progress. Great, we can then take a look at the log file created by the backup operation, and this will contain a bunch of information related to the backup process. The log file will be more useful in case the backup process fails, but this was not the case with our backup. Okay, we now have a backup of our WordPress installation, but let's take a look at other settings available for this plugin. So we can see that the file and database backup can be set up individually. We can run this manually or by selecting a schedule between 4 hours and 1 month. Next, we can select how many backups copies we want to keep on the storage location that we are using for the backup. We can select any of the plugins, themes, and uploads folder to be included in the backup. We can choose what to exclude from these, or we can exclude specific directories located in the WP content folder. We also have the option to encrypt our database backup, but this will be a premium option only. Right now we are using the free version of the plugin. We will take a look at the premium features shortly. We can select an email that we want to receive reports regarding our backups, and then the option that we are most interested in, a remote storage for our backups. There are several options available here, starting with None, which will store the backups locally, Dropbox, Amazon S3 servers, Rackspace, Google Drive, the option that we will use shortly, and other cloud storage locations. We used Dropbox in a previous lesson, so this time we will choose Google Drive as our remote storage location. We see that we can even use multiple locations or destinations by using an add-on for this plugin. Next step is to link our Google Drive account with the plugin, allowing it to upload our backups on Google Drive. We are asked for a Google Drive client ID and secret. By using the premium version of the plugin, we are able to change the name of the Google Drive folder that will store our backups, but this option is not available in the free version that we are using right now. And after we authenticate with Google by entering the Google Drive client ID and the secret key, we need to come back here and access this link in order to complete the authentication process. There are also expert settings available, but unless we encounter a problem or are curious about these settings, we will not use them. Let's scroll back up and see how we can obtain the Google Drive client ID and secret. I will click on the link which says follow this link to your Google API console. I'm then asked to log in my Google account. From here, we need to create a new project, and let's get back to the documentation. As this is the first time for me installing and setting up this plugin, I will need to follow the documentation on how to set up this. So we need to select web application at some point, and then we have to use this URL as an authorized redirect. Let's start by creating a new project. We'll give it the name as Updraft WordPress Backup, and the project ID is automatically generated for us. I'll then agree with the terms and conditions and will press Create. Next we go to APIs and Out, and we'll need to enable the API for the Google Drive, which is called Drive API. Okay, so back to the plugin page, I will need to take a closer look to the documentation, so I will open the first link in a new web browser tab. Here we can find detailed information including screenshots that describes the whole process step by step. So we start by creating a new project, which we already did. We activate the Drive API, we did that too. Next we need to set up a product name and email address. This can be done from the content screen panel. On step 4, we have to set up the API access credentials, and finally we need to enter these details in the Updraft Plus plugin settings. Okay, so switching back to the Google API console, we navigate to content screen, and from here we set up an email address and a product name. We will use the same name as before. For the homepage URL, I will enter my website's address, but this field is optional. And finally, we'll click on Save. Next, we need to go to Credentials and set up a new client ID. I will copy the URI from here, as I will need it shortly. And now we need to select Web Application. For the authorized JavaScript origins, I will enter my website, and for the authorized redirect URIs, I will paste the URI that I copied earlier. And finally, we'll click Create Client ID. And there is the information that I need to enter in the plugin's settings page, like client ID and client secret. So I will copy the client ID first and will paste it in the plugin settings page. We'll do the same with the client secret, and finally we'll click Save Changes. And the final step is to go back to the settings and to access the Authenticate with Google link. Then we click the Agree button, and if everything works as expected, you should see a success notification letting you know that you are now authenticated with Google Drive. And now we will press again the Backup Now button in order to create a new backup. This time we will exclude the database from the backup and will press the Backup Now button. After a few moments, we can see that a new backup operation is in progress. And this time we can see a status of uploading files to remote storage, meaning that our backup files will be uploaded to Google Drive. Just to double check that, I will open the Google Drive folder in my computer, and as we can see, an Updraft Plus folder is now present. If we open this folder, we can find 4 archives containing our backup. There is one archive containing the plugins, another one for the themes, a third one for uploads, and finally one called Others. Back to our WordPress dashboard, we can see that the backup log has been updated. It now contains the date and time for the latest backup operation. Again, this plugin also supports scheduled backups, and many other cloud platforms are available for storing your backup files. Before finishing this lesson, I would like to take a look at the premium features of the plugin. This can be obtained from a price starting with $86 and up to $179, depending on the license type that you choose, and this includes all the plugin features plus 1 year of full upgrades and customer support via forum and email. As for the license types, this includes a license for developers, which can be used on unlimited websites, a business license for up to 10 websites, and a personal license for up to 2 websites. And that concludes our lesson about Updraft Plus Backup and Restoration plugin for WordPress. I hope that you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and see you soon.
In this lesson, we are going to discuss about more professional solutions to the WordPress backup and restore. These solutions comes in as paid services or plugins. The first one is called Backup Buddy and could be found at iThemes.com website. The price for this plugin depends on how many websites do you want to take advantage of this. There are plans for 2, 10, and unlimited websites, but you will have to pay each year for this. Another option is to pay one time only and use it on unlimited sites. But what do you get for the money you pay? First, the plugin will allow you to upload your backups on several cloud storage services like Amazon Web Services, Dropbox, etc. Then you have email notifications, possibility to restore only specific files, malware scan, and an option that allows you to easily search and replace the text in your database, and many more. As for pricing, it starts for $18 per year for up to 2 websites, $100 per year for 10 websites, $115 per year for unlimited websites, or a one-time payment of $297 that includes lifetime plugin updates, 1 year of access to support forums, and more. The next solution that I'm going to discuss comes from WordPress. Their services are well known for WordPress backup and restore. Their pricing plans include a light version for $55 per year or $5 per month that includes daily automated restores, 30 days backup archive, and customer support. For $165 per year or $15 per month, you can get the basic plan, which includes real-time backup of every post, comment, media file, revision, and dashboard settings as they happen, so in real time. For $440 per year or $14 per month, you'll get the premium plan that adds extra security to your website. The WordPress will scan your website daily for known security threats and suspicious code. From my experience, WordPress offers very good services and I highly recommend it.
Hi, my name is 𝐒𝐫𝐴𝐺𝐥𝐴 and I'm excited to be your instructor for this course, WordPress Backup and Restore Fundamentals. I have a professional background that includes several programming languages and system administration. In this course, we are going to discuss about WordPress, especially about how to backup and restore its content and settings. So, what is WordPress? WordPress is a free and open source blogging tool and a content management system based on PHP and MySQL, which runs on a web hosting service. Now, let's see why is WordPress so popular and what are its main advantages. You might think that being free and open source is the key to its popularity. Actually, the easy installation, administration, flexibility, and its theming and plugin systems are the factors that make it so popular. It's a good choice for beginners as it does not require any PHP or HTML knowledge from the user's side. Its community is huge and the developer support is also great. Thousands of plugins are available for free on its website, and this is one of the reasons why WordPress is considered to be a content management system, not only a blogging platform. Themes are also contributing to its flexibility. It allows you to completely change the aspect of your website almost instantly. In this course, we'll discuss why having a backup of your WordPress blog is so important, what are the methods of creating these backups, and how to restore to a previous state by using a backup. We will discuss what information is needed to be contained in our backups. We'll then focus on 2 WordPress plugins that will make our backup job easier and will allow us to store the backup in different locations, such as local computer, your web hosting space, or even cloud storage. We will finish the course with a discussion about the more professional solutions to WordPress backup and restore. Throughout this course, I will assume that you already have a self-hosted WordPress blog, hosted online or installed on your local computer.